Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
A long, long time ago, when I was in high school, I missed 3 days of school. Our grandmother died, and I was a freshman in high school, and we went to West Virginia for her funeral. After that, for the next 3 years, I never missed a day of school. That was high school. By the time I got to college, I didn't mind taking a day off here or there from classes. But now I'm starting to wonder if, even though that set me up for a great work ethic, school being important and then work being important and going to work when you're sick being important, now I'm wondering if we put too much importance on that perfect attendance. I mean, I got a few White Sox tickets out of the deal. And that, like I said, it set me up as a good example for, being where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. But now we're talking about post COVID and mental health days and undiagnosed and diagnosed anxiety. And our children are a lot more stressed, it seemed. So now, sisters, I'm wondering, is it the worst thing in the world if our kids sometimes need a mental health break? And should we let our children take a day off sometimes from school? I know the one time that I didn't for Sarah, I regretted it. Her grandfather died. And we told her after we had to wake her up the next day to tell her that he had passed. She had said goodbye to him the night before, that she had to go to school because she was going to miss school the next week when the funeral was. 2 hours after we dropped her off, we got a call from the school. And they said, come bring her home, that family was more important. And I still regret making her go to school that one day, because after that, it was 5 nor'easters in 5 weeks, and she missed a lot of school, as did everyone else. So, what do you think? Should we sometimes let our kids take a day off from school?
Well, I tell you, looking back, I regret that I was thinking, just because the kid was in college and everything, when her father passed away, um, I regret not spending more time with her after that, and we're still feeling the effects, especially the anniversary of his passing is coming up October 21st, and my close friends know I go through a depression during this month, uh, and I'm sure she probably has an impact as well. And I mean, even though she went ahead to school and did well every semester in college, we both really needed some time off. And the way I handle stress is to keep working and keep working harder, which isn't necessarily the healthiest way, but that's been the habitual way that I handle extreme emotional distress. I think at that time, I should not have been focusing on, I got to make sure her first freshman year in school is good. And, so keep her going. I should have, we both should have taken some time off, and we should have spent some time together and really taken time to grieve during that period. Yeah.
I think it's also important to be able to put the right emphasis on school versus work versus rest. We live in such a busy society already. I remember telling my kids, when they had their last year of college, before some of them went back. I said, this is the last year where you get to have a whole bunch of days off, a whole summer off, all the holidays, because when you enter the work world, you have to work a whole year just to get 2 weeks off. And I tried stressing that to let them know the importance of the work ethic, like you said, Cheryl, and missing school was not an option if you just wanted to take a day off. But like you too, I am thinking how important it is for kids to be able to have rest days, stress-free days, just some days getting away if it has become a little bit too stressful. We've added on so many extra activities for kids in order to try to fill up their days with stuff so that we don't want to hear the words, I'm bored. Uh, I know in our house, the kids learn not to be bored because I would find some work for you to do. Just like mama, we never said I'm bored, you know, and I think in dealing with stress and trauma, it is important to know you need to have some time off. You can either schedule it or something will happen that will alert you to the fact, I think my child needs to have a day or two off, not just a weekend, but something's going on, and you have to be in tune to that to know. My small women's group is reading the book called You Are Worth the Work by Junie Felix. And she talks about dealing with stress, her whole story from trauma to faith, talks about growing up as a child with a mother who experienced mental health issues. And she was in therapy from the age of 4.
Wow.
They had a very intense life because of her mother's mental illness. And she talked about herself. We're in a place of the book where she is talking about when her mother passed away, she avoided dealing with it by being more busy, working more hours, not facing the fact that there was a real loss, and she needed to take that time to grieve. Our children are human beings who have all the intricacies of being a human being. Sometimes they need to have a place to go where they can grieve if there is a loss, or they can rest if there's too much pressure, or they just need to have a time to get away. And sometimes it may be something that we don't discern they have that need. We need to ask and find out.
It's funny because when Sarah was first starting K1, K1, so she was 4, and she had just gotten a modeling contract. And they called, and the first job was going to be the first day of school. And now when I look back at it, it wouldn't have been the worst thing for her to miss the first day of school. But I wanted to emphasize for her that this is important. I mean, she had been to daycare and preschool before, but I wanted to emphasize the importance of school, because that was the one thing that we all grew up with was, school is your ticket out of a lot of things, racism and all the other systemic problems that we as a people have had. So I wanted her to go and meet her friends, and so she ended up not doing the job, and she didn't do a whole lot of modeling jobs, and that was fine. It was more of a vanity thing, I think, for mom, if truth be told, than for her, and maybe, make a couple of bucks. But the thing is that I wanted her to be, I wanted her to be a kid before I wanted her to be anything else. And then as time went on, most of the time she didn't miss school unless she was sick, but she really loved school. And when she got to high school, she was in an exam school, and she was afraid of missing school because she said, you miss a day, it's like missing a week, because they were really, really pressured. But now her generation, you all have millennials, but I have a Generation Zer, and they are more in tune with the work-life balance that we probably all need. So are some of the younger millennials and millennials like you kids. They understand that life isn't about getting ahead, making money, this very narrowly defined idea of success, which means more money so you can acquire more stuff. Like we all need more stuff, right? And
All those hoarders. Yeah.
so it's yeah, so we're all hoarders. Even if it's money, it's still hoarding. And so now, if when I have a student that says they need a mental health day, I kind of roll my eyes, but I kind of also say, as long as you get your work done, I get it. But you can't have too many of those because class participation counts. That's part of your grade. Is being there and learning from each other, learning from your classmates. But I'm wondering if we're setting up our children more to fail as far as their own mental health, their own anxieties, by stressing you have to get to school, you have to do this, you have to do that. At the same time, we're pushing them into more activities so that they can get a scholarship to school or something like that, and stay, because we can't afford maybe to put the money into a youth fund. Uh, it's from the time they are young, we start pushing, and we look at test scores and we look at this and we look at that and how we're stacking up against other countries, and we don't really let kids necessarily be kids. Now sometimes when we talked about this subject, Barbara, you brought up sometimes kids might not want to go to school because they're being bullied. Maybe they have a test that day that they didn't study for, so we have to examine those things too.
You know what? Something else that you said that reminded me about the whole ethic of being in school. My doctor, who was Korean when I was living in Chicago, we got to talking about why her family chose to immigrate to the United States. And she said there was just way too much pressure on the children to succeed. And her parents did not want her to go through that. She said that statistically, and she's speaking about her own culture and her own group, she said that statistically, Koreans' growth is stunted because they don't get enough sleep in a culture where they are forced to succeed, forced to work so hard to be number one, that you don't have the opportunity to really be able to behave as a child and live as a child and grow as a child, because it is all about the hard work required for success. And I will tell you something else really interesting. When there is testing in the Korean schools, they have a law that airplanes are not allowed to fly over the space of where the schools are for the kids who are testing.
Wow.
Parents are walking around the school praying for their kids, not saying that that's a bad thing, but they are praying for their kids to do well on these tests, because from the very beginning, how well you do is going to determine your place in life, your state, your salaries, your positions, your acceptance. Those things are weighed heavily. That just seems to be an awful lot of pressure on a child, where school is supposed to represent learning, but with the addition of the excitement and the joy of special classes where you are learning all the arts and all the other things that make going to school part of a very wonderful experience. But if there is this intense pressure on learning being the major one emphasis, and you can't miss a single day of school for no reason at all, that becomes out of balance, and then your children will have mental health issues.
Yes, I know
And
Zakia told me several stories about, the what 5 years that she taught there, the suicide rate for people who so-called fail in life. I mean, when she explained even about the railway system and the wall that separates tracks from the trains, where you can't fall onto the track or jump onto the track because a lot of people were using the trains to commit suicide. So the way she told me, that just blew my mind. So now the way the trains are made, there's a wall, and it only opens up to where the door opens up, so there's no public access to the trains ever. But just the whole thing, the work day of the children. I mean, they're working from sun up to sundown, pretty much. I mean, they start their work day, take a break for lunch, and then take a break for dinner, and then come back to school. So there's no childhood time. And I think it's time for us as intelligent adults who are seeing the impact of this extreme imbalanced culture and attitude, and misdefinition of success as, achieving as status and all that. We need to change that. We have the power to change that, and we need to seize that power and not have our children living an unfun life. Because then, I mean, what's it all for if you're not enjoying life? What's the purpose? After you got all this pressure as a child to succeed, and if you're not top of your class, you're ready to commit suicide as a child. Something's wrong with that. So I think we should think about, how do we change the culture and change the definition of success and really make school fun. Because I can remember, I mean, I needed some mental health days as a child, and I went through a lot of stuff, bullying, and what happens is your body starts to create physical illnesses
right,
when you're
right.
mentally disturbed and, distressed. And so that becomes, that evolves into some real illnesses as an adult. So I think we really do need to take care of our children emotionally and give them a break, and not define success as, all A's in all your classes, or you never miss a day of school. I think we need to define success as being in a state of peace of mind and joy, and really make all our environments conform to that.
It's interesting because of the few Japanese words that I still remember. Kairoshi, or death from overwork, is one of
Ooh.
them, because there were people in that culture, not defining, one word as a whole culture, but a lot of different cultures have this feeling of, you get up, you work, it may be more relaxed, but you come, you go, you drink, you drink until you fall asleep, then you get up the next day and then you work. But there's like
Mm.
people who just work and work, and there's death from overwork. And I think because we have gotten to that point where, you have, the test scores, and you have these things that are measuring our kids, and everything is always to the first thing they cut when the test scores are bad are the things that you need, the physicality of gym class, the musicality of music class, or the arts, and all the things that make us well-rounded individuals, and also, create something other than, uh, robots to work for the man and for the corporation to make more money for the corporation and not necessarily for you. And
Mhm.
the thing is that kids need to be kids. Now, if you have a kid that's constantly out of school, you have to start to say, okay, what's going on, because you do need school, not just for the book learning, but for the social emotional learning that comes from school, which is the reason why COVID was so devastating for a lot of children, because they were isolated in their homes, they didn't have that interaction with their classmates. And I'll tell you, there are a lot of people 3 years in, because we're in year three, folks. Let's stop calling it two. We're in year three and going into year four. And the thing is that a lot of people have become very, very socially awkward because of that time, and because social interaction is so much more important than we have given it room for. And I noticed something else that I think in New York that they have decided there are going to be no more snow days. Now that they have that hybrid model that they've kind of seen work, if it snows, okay, guys, turn on your laptops. We're still having school. And yeah, but you know what? Sometimes you really needed those snow days. You just did. So, it's and there are people who have year-round school. And sometimes it's like 12 weeks on and 3 weeks off, and they say that's to keep kids from losing so much. Now, I had a problem when Sarah got into the exam school, because she got into it and she was going in as a seventh grader, was all the summer reading, required reading. And I think the kids, if I had my way, the way I would do it, like, yes, you're going to read something, but you're going to read something fun, as long as it's even if it's what they call a graphic novel. But you are going to write a couple of paragraphs on what you read, how you liked it, how you didn't like it. And then you're encouraging kids to read for fun, instead of telling them they've got to read this book about, the history of codfish. And that's what one of her books were. And some of the books were really great, but they weren't relatable for kids from from seventh grade all the way up to 12th grade. There just aren't a whole lot of books that are relatable on that scale. So I think trying to give kids summer homework is also robbing them of the one time that they have to just relax and be kids.
Enjoy summer. Yeah, I agree. Some parents have actually tried these experiments, different places that I observed as a person involved in drama ministry, when we would go to other schools and observe how they operated. There was one school actually where the kids only went to school 3 days a week, like you said, the time on, the time off. And they felt, and I think this was in the state of Indiana, they were doing this, and they felt that the kids learned more by
Yep.
only being in school 3 or 4 days a week. They had a model, and then they would trade off and do it the other way. And also they adjusted the hours. And I know that it's difficult to try to work certain hours and have your kid be in school the hours that you're working. But in one school where I was there for the science fair, one of the students had done an experiment on how well kids do based on how much sleep they were getting. And so you had kids having to be at school at 7 in the morning, having lunch at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then being at school way late after 3 o'clock. This is supposed to be the early class, but knowing how teenagers operate, they're all staying up too late, but they're
Right.
still having to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning to be at school for that
Yeah.
first class. And
Yep.
it just became way too stressful. They weren't learning as much. They were tired. Kids are falling asleep in class because of those kind of hours. And it was to accommodate the work schedule of parents,
Yeah.
but it
That's
wasn't
exactly
always
right.
good for the
Because
kids.
because younger children do better early, and teenagers do better like 9, 10 o'clock. I remember Sarah had to be there at 7 something in the morning, and that's when she developed a caffeine habit. They would stop at Dunkin' and get coffee, and that's just terrible. But the thing is
No,
that when
it
you
is.
stay up late, one, she had a lot of homework, and
Mhm.
two, she also had different activities because she was a cheerleader. And for a while she was doing gymnastics, and she was dancing. So she had all these activities both in and out of school, so she would have to go after that. And then she had homework to do, and of course, and they naturally stay up late anyway because that's where their body clock. So if they had started like 9, 10 o'clock in the day, they would have done better. Even, but people says, well, yeah, but then they start their activities too late. So
How late is too
they
late?
everything. We accommodate everything but the kids. We
Yeah.
accommodate, okay, football practice will be too late and it'll be dark when they get done. Or, they have this or they have that, and we can't have that too late. But really, or the bus schedules will be, it'll be too bad for the buses. So we do everything to accommodate parents' work schedules. And now that we know that a lot of people can work from home, let's talk about that then. Let's see how you can maybe change it. Start off, working from home, and then, once your kid is on the bus, then you head on out. There's a lot of things that we can do with a little bit more imagination other than that stupid saying of, well, this is the way we've always done it. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
maybe our kids won't need so many mental health breaks. A 4-day week. I did a 4-day week for 20 years. And it was wonderful. And when, you know what? And when we had to go back to 5 days a week, I stopped feeling the same way because I was working 5 nights a week. And
Yeah.
it's different from people working 5 days a week because they're home for 7 nights. When you work 5 nights a week, you're home for 2 nights. And at least when we had 10-hour days and we had those night shifts, you still had 3 days off, 3 full days off to recuperate. So, and there's a lot of things like that. 4 days a week, and then a kid gets an extra day. Okay, for working parents, I get it. We work split shifts. Everybody can't do that. A lot of single parents, but we could have a lot more imaginative things, after school programs or day programs or all kinds of things that we could do. And so our kids won't be so mentally drained that every once in a while they have to fake a headache or a stomach
Yeah.
ache or
And,
something.
and
Just
sometimes they're
to
not
get
faking because it's the stress
sometimes they're
that
not
actually
sleeping.
creates it. Yeah. Well, we got to go. But if you have children and they really aren't feeling well or depressed or just want to stay home from school, sometimes you should just let them, because there's no such thing in
Accommodate.
life if you are distressed and sad and suicidal. So
It's not good.
Nobody ever left this life saying, "I wish I had spent more time at the office."
that's right.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, make sure you follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Three Black Moms, and join us every Sunday evening, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern. And feel free to write in your comments. Question: should we let our children take a mental health day off of school? Tell us what you think. Until next time, I'm Naima.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Barbara. We are 3 Black moms. Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl. And I'm Naima. We're 3 Black Moms.